So good afternoon. Second year BA Computer Applications, fourth semester Computer Networks Unit 4. Unit 4లో మనకి నెట్వర్క్ డివైజెస్ అని ఒక యూనిట్ ఉంది. ఇట్ ఈస్ వెరీ ఈజీ యూనిట్ అండ్ ఫస్ట్ అది కవర్ చేసుకున్నాము. మిగతా తర్వాత చెప్పుకుందాం ఎందుకంటే ఇట్ ఈస్ సింపుల్ అండ్ ఈజీ టు అండర్స్టాండ్. సో వాట్ ఆర్ ద నెట్వర్క్ డివైజెస్? మనకి డిఫరెంట్ డివైజెస్ మనకి నెట్వర్క్లో మనకి యూజ్ అవుతాయి. లైక్ నెట్వర్క్ కేబుల్స్, హబ్స్, రిపీటర్స్, స్విచ్చెస్, బ్రిడ్జెస్ లాగా. సో ఇవన్నీ కూడా వాట్ ఆర్ దే, హౌ దే ఆర్ కనెక్టెడ్ అండ్ హౌ దే ఆర్ యూజ్డ్, వాట్ ఆర్ దేర్ ఫంక్షనాలిటీస్, ఇవన్నీ కూడా మనం ఒకసారి చెప్పుకుందాం. సో వాట్ ఆర్ ద ఫంక్షన్స్ ఆఫ్ నెట్వర్క్ డివైజెస్? సెపరేటింగ్ మీన్స్ కనెక్టింగ్ networks for expanding network, and examples are repeaters, hubs, bridges, routers, switches and PTS. Remote access, example modems, like that. So connecting network devices, what are the functional different types of network devices are connecting network devices means repeaters, hubs, switches, bridges, routers, gateways. అలాగే రిమోట్ యాక్సెస్ డివైజెస్, రిమోట్ యాక్సెస్ కనెక్టింగ్ డివైజెస్, మోడమ్స్. సో వాట్ ఈస్ ఎక్స్పాండింగ్? ఫస్ట్ కేటగిరీ is expanding networks. So networks cannot be made larger by simply adding new computers and more cables. Less efficient. Can install components to segment, divide large LAN into form small LANs, connect LANs. Required components means so to expand, what is the necessity of this network devices means to expand the number of nodes or computers connected to a LAN or a network. అంటే మనకు ఒక కంప్యూటర్లో నెట్వర్క్లో మనకి నెంబర్ ఆఫ్ డివైజెస్ని ఎక్స్పాండ్ చేయొచ్చు. ఫర్ ఎగ్జాంపుల్ ఒక 4 to 5 డివైజెస్ ఉన్నాయనుకుంటే స్మాల్ మనకి స్విచ్ లేదా హబ్ అనేది సరిపోతుంది. అదే ఫర్ ఎగ్జాంపుల్ 100 డివైజెస్ లేదా కంప్యూటర్స్ ఉన్నాయనుకుంటే వీ రిక్వైర్ సమ్ లార్జ్ స్విచ్చెస్ ఆర్ నెంబర్ ఆఫ్ స్విచ్చెస్, నెంబర్ ఆఫ్ రూటర్స్, రిపీటర్స్, ఇవన్నీ కూడా కావాలి. సో ఎక్స్పాండింగ్ డివైజెస్, కనెక్టింగ్ డివైజెస్ అంటాము. సో లైక్ దే ఆర్ కాల్డ్ యాజ్ రిపీటర్స్, హబ్స్, బ్రిడ్జెస్, రూటర్స్. సో నెట్వర్క్స్ ఫర్ ఎక్స్పాండింగ్ నెట్వర్క్ అనమాట. సో జనరల్లీ మనకి ల్యాన్ అనేది మనకి ఎక్స్పాండ్ చేయాలి అంటే కెన్ ఇన్స్టాల్ కాంపోనెంట్స్ టు సెగ్మెంట్ డివైడ్ లార్జ్ ల్యాన్ ఇంటూ స్మాల్ ల్యాన్స్. So we required these devices: repeaters, bridges, routers, switches, hubs or gateways. So what are repeaters and hubs? Repeater అంటే ఏంటి, హబ్ అంటే ఏంటి? Repeaters or hubs work at the OSI physical layer to generate the network signals and resend them to other segments. సో జనరల్లీ రిపీటర్స్ అండ్ హబ్స్ అనేవి మనకి ఓఎస్ఐ లేయర్లో చెప్పుకున్నాం కదా. ఓఎస్ఐ లేయర్లో మనకి 7 layers ఉంటాయి. ఫస్ట్ లేయర్ ఈజ్ ఫిజికల్ లేయర్. సో దీస్ 2 devices are works at layer 1 of OSI layer. This physical layer, they simply regenerate the network signal and resend them to other segments or other devices. And primitive hub can be viewed as a multi-port repeater. It generates data and broadcasts them to all ports. So we can use a device called repeater or hub, or a hub. Generally these are used to connect to 2 or more LANs. So generally hubs are used to connect 2 or more LANs or segments. By using these devices we can expand our network. So limitations and features. So cannot link unlike segments, cannot join segments with different access methods and token passing, and do not isolate and filter packets. Can connect different types of media, the most economic way of expanding to network. So repeaters and hubs are very less expensive. So they can be used to connect only liked segments or liked LANs or networks. They cannot be used to link different networks and links. Similarly, cannot join segments with different access methods, and cannot join can connect different types of media. Means they are used to connect any type of media we are using. So this is the example. Thin fiber optic and thin coaxial cables to connect different bridges. So what are the bridges? Has one input and one output. What is the bridge? These bridges have only one input and one output. Used to isolate network traffic and computers. Isolate means control network traffic and computers. Has the intelligence to examine incoming packet source and destination addresses, but cannot interpret higher level information, and cannot filter packet according to its protocol. And how bridges works means bridges works at the media access control sublayer of the OSI model. So here you could choose the middle two segments means LANs, two portions or two LANs are used to connect by using some bridge. జనరల్గా ఈ బ్రిడ్జెస్లో మనకు రూటింగ్ టేబుల్స్ అనేవి ఉంటాయి. సో రూటింగ్ టేబుల్ ఈజ్ బిల్ట్ టు రికార్డ్ ద సెగ్మెంట్ నెంబర్ ఆఫ్ అడ్రసెస్, and if destination address is in the same segment as the source address, stop transmit, otherwise forward to the other segment. So differences between bridges and repeaters. So what are the differences between repeaters and bridges? Comparing with the OSI layer, data regeneration and reduce network cost. So repeaters in the OSI layer, repeaters use physical layer, bridges use data link layer. And in the data regeneration, repeaters regenerate data at a signal level, regenerate data in the packet level, and reduce network traffic. Repeaters generally don't reduce any traffic, network traffic, whereas repeaters can reduce the traffics. ఎవరండి?
హలో
ఎవరండి?
హలో గుడ్ ఈవినింగ్ సార్.
ఎవరండి?
సార్ యూఎస్ ఎగ్జామ్ ఎప్పుడు?
ఎవరు మేడం?
మీ కాలేజ్ స్టూడెంట్ సార్. మా యూఎస్ ఎగ్జామ్ ఎప్పుడు?
ఈవీఎస్ అండి. మీరు ఒకసారి మీరు వాట్సాప్ గ్రూప్లో ఉన్నారా? అందులో టైం టేబుల్ పెట్టండి, చూస్తారా?
టైం టేబుల్ పెట్టారా?
లేదంటే హాయ్ అని పెట్టండి, వాట్సాప్ ఉంటే నేను పెట్టేస్తాను టైం టేబుల్.
సరే సార్. సరే సార్.
ఓకేనండి. So what are switches? Switches అంటే ఏంటంటే what are the switches? Switches operate at the data link layer, that is layer 2 of the OSI model. స్విచ్చెస్ అనేవి సో లేయర్ 2లో వర్క్ అవుతాయి. లేయర్ 1లో వర్క్ అయ్యేవి హబ్స్. లేయర్ 1లో మనకి వర్క్ అయ్యేవి ఫిజికల్ లేయర్లో వర్క్ అయ్యేవి హబ్స్. లేయర్ 2లో వర్క్ అయ్యేది స్విచ్చెస్. సో కెన్ ఇంటర్ప్రిట్ అడ్రస్ ఇన్ఫర్మేషన్. Means generally switches are interpreted addresses are by using addresses they can work. Switches reassemble bridges and can be considered as multi-port bridges. By having multi-ports, you can better use limited bandwidth and prove more cost effective than bridges. Switches divided a network into several isolated channels. So packets sending from one channel will not go to another. Each channel has its own capacity and need not be shared with other channels. So స్విచ్ అనేది మనకి లేయర్ టూ అంటే ఏంటంటే వాట్ ఈస్ ద లేయర్ టూ? ఇట్ ఈస్ డేటా లింక్ లేయర్లో మనకు వర్క్ అవుతుంది. సో ఇక్కడ వాట్ ఈస్ ద మెయిన్ ఫంక్షనాలిటీ ఆఫ్ ద స్విచ్చెస్ అంటే మనకి డిఫరెంట్ పార్ట్స్ ఆఫ్ ద నెట్వర్క్ లేదా సెగ్మెంట్స్ నెట్వర్క్ మనకి ఛానల్స్ మనం క్రియేట్ చేసుకుని యూస్ చేసుకోవడానికి డిఫరెంట్ స్పీడ్స్ తోటి యూ కెన్ యూస్ డిఫరెంట్ స్పీడ్స్ ఆఫ్ ద నెట్వర్క్స్ని కనెక్ట్ చేసుకోవడానికి యూజ్ అవుతుంది. సో 10 Mbps 100 Mbps స్పీడ్స్ తోటి దిస్ ఇస్ ద ఎగ్జాంపుల్. So here we connect one switch, one of the port of the switch to hub, and again we are using some same hub with 3.3 Mbps speed that we use చేసాము. So advantage of switches means switches divide a network into several isolated channels. అంటే మనకి స్విచ్చెస్ వల్ల మనకు మెయిన్ అడ్వాంటేజ్ ఏంటంటే ఒక నెట్వర్క్ని డిఫరెంట్ ఐసోలేటెడ్ ఛానల్స్ కింద మనం డివైడ్ చేయడానికి మనకి యూజ్ అవుతుంది. So reduce the possibility of a collision, and each channel has its own network capacity since isolated, secured. So what are the features of switches? Advantages means first one is reduce the possibility of collision, means there is no loss of data or information or disturbances or collisions of data or packets. Collision only occurs when two devices try to get across to one channel. Can be solved by buffering one of them for later access. Each channel has its own network capacity, means suitable for real-time applications, example video conferencing. And each channel has its own network capacity, means each we can connect and use any number of channels, networks, devices. Why? Because each device or network have its own channel capacity, means network speeds or bandwidths, since isolated and secure, means generally these are secure devices. Why? Because data will only go to the destination but not others. So limitations of switch: although contains buffers to accommodate a burst of traffic, can become overheated by heavy traffic, and a device cannot detect collision when buffer full, and some higher level protocols do not detect errors. Those data packets are continuously pumped. So these are the limitations. So using switches to create VLANs, means virtual LANs. So next device is routers. What are the routers? Routers and so what are the routers? Why we are using routers and how to connect routers and configure routers. So layer 2 switches cannot take advantage of multiple paths. Routers work at the OSI layer 3 network layer. So physical layer 1 లో physical layer లో hubs వర్క్ అవుతాయి. layer 2 లో మనకి layer 2 is what is layer 2? data link layer, మనకి switches వర్క్ అవుతాయి. layer 3 is network లేయర్లో మనకి రూటర్స్ అనేవి వర్క్ అవుతాయి. సో లేయర్ 2 స్విచెస్ cannot take advantage of multiple paths. Routers work at the OSI layer 3 network layer. They use the logical address of packets and routing tables to determine the best path for data delivery. So how routers are work? As packets are passed from routers to routers, data link layer source and destination addresses are stripped off. Enable a router to route a packet from TCP/IP. Only packets with known network addresses will be passed. So static and dynamic routers. The static routers, manual configuration of routers are possible. The dynamic routers, manual configuration is the first route. So what are the main differences between routers, bridges and routers and bridges? So generally routers are used at layer 3. They are called as layer 3 devices which recognize network address. Bridges are layer 2 devices which look at the MAC address. Bridges forward everything they don't recognize. Routers select the best path by using some routing algorithms. So this is the main summary or highlights of this PPT. So repeaters. Repeaters are the least expensive way to expand a network, but they are limited to connecting two signals. So there are 4 devices, network devices: repeaters, bridges, switches, and routers. So repeaters are the cheapest; they are very cheap way to expand network. This is for expanding a network, a small network or a big network, but they are limited to connecting two segments. Segments means LANs. So bridges means functions similar to repeaters. They are also used to expand a network, but can understand the node address. And the third one is, so bridges are also same as work as repeaters, used to expand a network, but limited, but some difference. It's a difference. Third one is switches. What is switches? Switches can be considered as a multi-port bridges, can divide a network into small logical channels. So switches are mainly used to divide a large network into. Switches are mainly used to divide a large network into small channels or small network segments. So by using switches only we can connect hubs, repeaters, and switches are more expensive compared to repeaters and bridges. Routers are interconnect networks and provide filtering functions. They can determine the best route. So routers are generally used to interconnect, means connect two or more networks and provide filtering functions. Means similarly they can determine the best routing. They can work or they can determine the best route, or they can find out the best routing algorithm to find out the best path of networking device. So remote access devices. What are remote access devices? First one is modems. So remote access devices are, first one is modems. So what are modems? Allow computers to communicate over a telephone line. Generally modems are used to connect a computer by using a telephone line. Enable communication between networks or connecting to the world beyond land. So generally these modems are used to communicate between a network to the outside LAN, to the internet by using some LAN. Cannot send digital signal directly to telephone line. Why? Because telephone lines can transmit only analog signals, whereas computers can transmit only digital signals. We may require some device called modem, and modems cannot send digital signals directly to the telephone line. So sending, so that we can require a translator called as modem. It is called as modular and demodular device, used to transmit or convert digital signal to analog and analog to digital by using telephones and computers. So this is the diagram of using modem, which is used to connect an outside line or generally a telephone line to a computer through modems. Generally modems are used to use to convert digital to analog and as well as analog to digital signals. So generally modems have a connector or communication interface called as RST32 port and an RJ11 telephone line interface, telephone plug. So generally modems have two ports. One is RJ11 used to connect a telephone interface, telephone plug, and RS232 port to connect to a computer. So modem performance measures. So how to measure the performance, or what is the speed of a modem means. Baud rate. What is baud rate means? Bandwidth. The number of symbol changes per second on the transmission line. Bit rate, BPS, bit per second, number of bits transmitted per second. These are the two measures used to convert or measure the speed of a modem. So what are the different types of modems? And there are different types of modems. First one is asynchronous modems, and the second one is synchronous modems. Asynchronous and synchronous modems. So what are synchronous? So no clocking devices are commonly used in telephone networks. Data is transmitted in a serial stream. Each character is turned into a string of 8 bits. So this is asynchronous. So synchronous means need clocking devices. So what is the difference between synchronous and synchronous? Means synchronous in synchronous modems or synchronous transmission, clocking devices are used and data are transmitted in blocks. Generally in synchronous modems, data transmitted in the form of blocks. A block is nothing but a group of some bits or bytes, generally used in digital networks.
మీరు స్నానాలు అవి సాయంత్రం చేసుకోండి కూడా తిని ఆకలిస్తుంది ఇంకో ఎగ్జామ్ తగ్గలేదు నాకు ఓపిక లేదు